Hi, my name is Scott Campshafer, and I'm a clinical social worker in the Austin, Central Texas area. And I wanted to talk to you today about the experience known as adverse childhood experiences and how they can impact uh, addiction issues and actually contribute to them. And one thing that most people don't know about is that very concept of what are called adverse childhood experiences, or what's also been popularly referred to as the ACE survey. And the ACE survey was a survey that was developed about 20 some odd years ago by the healthcare giant Kaiser Permanente in cooperation with the Centers for Disease Control to get an idea of how people and their early life experiences can relate to health problems later in life, specifically problems having to do with chronic health conditions or mental health conditions, ranging all the way from chronic heart disease to things like schizophrenia or even garden variety depression. And what they found is that there is a tremendous correlation between the number and the magnitude of adverse childhood experiences that people will go through from the time they're 0 to 18 to health problems throughout the lifespan. This is something that's not really known much about in the general public, but amongst clinicians it's really kind of something where we pay a lot of attention to. And adverse childhood experiences are things like, you know, the sexual abuse when you're younger, or having, being involved in a traumatic car crash or near-death experience, or having some other form of abuse or neglect, maybe a parent who was addicted to alcohol or other drugs. And if there are a number of these experiences over the course of a person's childhood, that can negatively relate to an ability to adapt to life circumstances further down the line. So, and part of the reason for that is that, children when they're growing up, if they've had these kinds of experiences, those can be so devastating and overwhelming that it makes it hard for their brain and nervous system to develop appropriately so that they can be able to navigate the developmental milestones that happen in the first 18 years of life, so that when they get out into the adult world, they're really kind of just, in a way, just kind of flailing about, and they haven't had a chance to develop in the way that children need to be able to develop to be able to function well as adults. So they may be more prone to developing addiction issues, because if I'm a person who was neglected as a child, I didn't get the nurturing that I needed from my parents or their caregivers, so I might turn to cigarettes or alcohol, or I might turn to drugs, or I might turn to compulsive sexual behavior to fill that hole in me, and this pothole, if you will, that developed in me as a result of the abuse and the neglect that I experienced. So that's kind of how these chronic health conditions can get developed. I mean, obviously, if somebody has been a lifelong smoker, then they're going to be at significantly elevated risk for lung cancer, for lung disease, for even for diabetes, because that has a strong relation to smoking. So what this creates again is a situation where I've had these adverse childhood experiences, and if there's a significant number of them, that can make the deck stacked against me later in life for being able to function and to live a full life as a healthy, mature adult. And we're having an adverse childhood experience potentially happening right now with our country, with the COVID-19 crisis and the economic crisis. And those things affect children and they affect adults, but as adults we're hopefully more able to deal with them than children are, because children are so innately vulnerable. But there are some things that you can do to help make sure that you're going against this stacked deck experience. And by the way, I wouldn't advise anybody to try to draw any conclusions from their own ACE survey score taken on their own without the help of a clinician, because it's important to be able to contextualize that and look at it in an appropriate way, because some people may have been survivors when they had ACE scores that were really high, and other people's whose ACE scores were relatively low, but they might not have been able to be as functional, and they may have had other things that have happened that have negatively affected their life trajectory. But there are a couple of things you can do to help work against the deck being stacked against you, so to speak, because of a certain number of questions that you may have answered yes to on the ACE survey. And one of those is to have found some sort of mentor or some other adult figure who's been an encouraging or supportive influence in your life. They don't have to be a family member. It could have been a teacher, some other mentor. It could have been a coach who really believed in you and helped you to realize that you can make it. Another thing that really helps people to be able to go against the ACEs is that they've been willing to and are comfortable reaching out for support. I think one of the great things about the millennial generation is that they're more apt to reach out for help if they need it from mental health professionals and other folks. And so that actually works against having the deck stacked against you. And then another thing that really helps is having a support network of some type that you can rely on and you can trust. They don't have to be family members, but if you've had a friend network that's supportive and encouraging somehow, and as opposed to kind of leading you down the road to ruin through getting you involved in drugs or extreme activities and movements or cults, if you were, those all help to work against the stacked deck. And then, if you feel like you've done all that, or you haven't done all that, and you need professional help to go against an elevated ACE score and your own adverse childhood experiences, I encourage you to call me or some other mental health professional who can help you look at this situation and to be able to develop some strategies to take care of yourself, because a lot of this involves self-care, which is another one of the big things that helps people work against the stacked deck, is that they are willing and able to operate from a routine and a structure which encourages and promotes self-care, I should say. So, but the main thing is knowing what you're dealing with and getting support and help to work against it, and so that you can live a functional life, because like I said, having adverse childhood experiences is not a death sentence by any means, but it is a call to get help and support one way or the other, because we all need support and we all need help, but those who have adverse childhood experiences need a little bit more of that than the general population. So I hope you benefited from listening to my talk today, and I encourage you to reach out for help however you get it, as long as it's from a trustworthy source, if you feel like this is something that you're struggling with. So take care. I wish you the best of mental health, overall health, and be safe.